"Your dad signed you away," my grandmother whispered at the door, and in that single sentence, my entire world snapped in half. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Rowan Hale. I'm 17, and for as long as I can remember, my father, Declan, has treated me like I was something he forgot to throw out. Quiet annoyance, forced responsibility, never love. My stepmother, Marcy, didn't bother pretending. She made it clear that I was extra baggage she didn't sign up for. But even with all that, I never thought they would actually get rid of me. One morning, as I walked past the kitchen, I overheard Marcy say, almost cheerfully, "Well, at least she's finally leaving." I froze. Leaving? Nobody told me anything. Before I could ask, the doorbell rang and my godmother, Lucinda Brewer, stepped inside. She looked nervous, eyes darting around, lips pressed tight, like she was walking into a crime scene. She hugged me too quickly. "Grab your things, Rowan." "My things?" I asked, confused. Before I could keep questioning her, she leaned down close enough that only I could hear her. "Your dad signed you away." My heart hammered against my ribs. Signed me away? What did that even mean? I looked over at Declan, who couldn't even meet my eyes. And that's when Lucinda explained. Declan had legally handed over my guardianship. Not in a sudden moment of frustration, no. The papers had been signed months ago. They had been planning this while I was living under their roof, thinking maybe things could still get better. Lucinda tried to soften the blow, but the truth only cut deeper. Declan told her I was too much responsibility, and that he wanted to focus on his real family. Real family. The words felt like a slap. Suddenly, every cold shoulder, every dismissed question, every holiday where I was left out made awful sense. Marcy stood behind him, arms crossed, satisfied. They didn't even help me pack. Lucinda and I walked upstairs, and all I was allowed to take was one small duffel bag. 17 years of life reduced to a few clothes and a toothbrush. When we stepped outside, I turned back one last time. Declan and Marcy stood at the window, staring at me like I was a delivery finally being picked up. No goodbye. No emotion. Just relief. Lucinda placed a comforting hand on my shoulder as we drove away. She promised me she would help me uncover the full truth of why they did this. I nodded, but inside, something else was growing, something sharp and determined. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to break. One day I would return. Not to forgive them, but to expose them. Moving into Lucinda's home felt strange at first. I wasn't used to someone asking if I'd eaten, or if I slept well, or if I needed anything. She talked to me with real kindness, something I didn't know how to respond to. For the first time, I felt what normal care might look like, and it made me realize how empty my old life had been. A few days later, Lucinda brought out a small box she had kept for years. Inside were letters from my biological mother, Evelyn. My hands shook as I opened the first one. She wrote about missing me, loving me, and wanting to see me. Lucinda told me Declan had taken the letters from her and told her not to interfere. He hid every single one. All this time, he had told me Evelyn abandoned me. But her handwriting, her words, showed the truth. She never stopped trying to reach me. The truth didn't stop there. While helping Lucinda clean the attic, I found a stack of legal papers wrapped in an old folder. They were custody documents from years ago. Declan had filed paperwork to give me up to the state back then, and he was even paid for doing it. But he never completed the final steps until recently. He had not signed me away out of frustration. He had done it because he wanted money. I felt sick realizing my life had been traded like something he could cash in whenever he wanted. Lucinda sat beside me and told me I needed to start writing everything down. Every memory, every document, every detail. She said the truth mattered, and I had the right to protect myself. So I began putting the pieces together, looking back at all the moments that suddenly made sense. Times I wasn't allowed to join school trips or join sports teams or go to friends' houses. Marcy always had an excuse ready, and I thought she was just strict. Now I saw it clearly. They never wanted me to grow, to connect, to be seen. They wanted me controlled and isolated. Lucinda took me to see a lawyer, someone who listened carefully to everything I said. After going through the papers, he looked up at me and said Declan's actions might not just be cruel, they might be criminal. He used words like abandonment, fraud, and violation of guardianship laws. Hearing that felt heavy, but it also gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time, direction. When we left the lawyer's office, I stood outside for a long moment. I felt the anger, but but also a calm determination rising inside me. My father had stolen years from me, years of love, safety, and even the chance to know my real mother. I made a quiet promise to myself right there. I would fight back. I would seek justice. And I would take back the life they tried to throw away. I started therapy because Lucinda thought it would help me understand everything that had happened. At first, I didn't want to talk, but slowly I began to see how much I had pushed down over the years. I never realized how deeply the emotional abuse had shaped me, how often I blamed myself for things that were never my fault. Saying it out loud made it real, but it also made me stronger. I wasn't imagining any of it. I wasn't too sensitive. I had been hurt, and I was finally facing it. Around this time, I met Silas Brewer, Lucinda's nephew. He wasn't loud or pushy. He just showed up when I needed help carrying boxes, or when I needed someone to sit with me while I filled out forms I didn't understand. He didn't ask for details, but I could tell he knew something was wrong. He quickly became a steady presence in my life, someone who didn't want anything from me, which felt strange but comforting. With Lucinda's help, I began looking into the legal steps needed to access my mother's sealed records. I wanted the truth, not the stories my father had fed me my whole life. When I finally got some of the documents, I felt sick. Evelyn had never abandoned me. Declan had forged a statement saying she wasn't fit to be a parent. He used that lie to cut her out completely. I sat there shaking, holding proof that my entire childhood had been built on his lies. As I read more, I learned something else. Declan remarried soon after the custody ruling, and Marcy had stepped into the picture very fast. It was clear she never wanted me there. Every time she kept me from school trips, sports, or even hanging out with friends suddenly made sense. I wasn't part of their life. I was just a problem to manage. One evening, Silas mentioned something he remembered from years ago. He had once seen my father exchanging envelopes with a county clerk behind a building. At the time he thought it was nothing, but now it fit perfectly with everything I was discovering. That memory gave me another piece of the puzzle. I started laying out the timeline, letters that were never delivered, signatures that didn't look right, papers that should have gone through but didn't. The more I organized it, the more I saw how long my father had been planning all of it. This wasn't one bad decision. It was a pattern of control and deception stretching back years. When I finally worked up the courage to call Declan and confront him, he didn't listen. He didn't deny anything, he simply hung up on me. That phone call told me everything I needed to know. He truly believed he was untouchable. He didn't think I had the strength, proof, or support to challenge him. And that's when I understood something important. Confronting him wasn't enough. Words wouldn't change anything. I needed evidence. I needed witnesses. I needed leverage. I wasn't going to let him hide behind lies anymore. When Lucinda and I finally found Mara Litchfield, I felt nervous. She had been my mother Evelyn's close friend, someone who might know the truth that no one had ever told me. Mara welcomed us into her small home, and the moment she looked at me, her eyes softened in a way that made my chest tighten. She said she could see Evelyn in my face. Then she sat down, took a deep breath, and told me everything. She explained that my mother never gave up on me. She had fought hard to keep me, going to every hearing, every meeting, doing everything she could. But Declan had made serious accusations against her. Things that weren't true at all. Mara said those lies were the reason the court took Evelyn's rights away. Hearing it made me feel sick. All my life, I had believed I wasn't wanted, but the truth was that she had wanted me more than anything. Then Mara told us something even harder. After losing the case, Evelyn had been heartbroken. She blamed herself for losing me, even though she hadn't done anything wrong. Not long after, she was in a car accident. Mara said she was never the same after the custody loss and carried that pain until the end. Her voice cracked when she said it, and I felt something inside me shatter. Declan didn't just ruin my life, he ruined hers too. Trying to steady myself, I asked if my mother left anything behind. Mara nodded and said Evelyn had a small inheritance for me, something she'd worked hard to save. But Declan had tried to claim it after her death. That didn't surprise me, but it still made my stomach twist. It was more proof of how far he was willing to go. Lucinda suggested we go to the courthouse next. I needed to see Evelyn's files myself. When we requested them, the clerk brought out a thick folder. As I opened it, I saw right away that something was wrong. Declan's submitted documents were inconsistent. Some dates didn't match up. Some signatures looked rushed or different. It felt like puzzle pieces scattered everywhere, and each one pointed to him lying again and again. I realized he couldn't have done all of this alone. Someone in the system must have helped him bury the truth. Lucinda told me we should look through old clerk archives, and that's exactly what we did next. While searching through dusty boxes, I found it, a signature that was supposed to be Declan's but clearly wasn't. The handwriting was completely different from anything of his I'd ever seen. Holding that document in my hands, I felt everything fall into place. This wasn't just neglect or cruelty. This was fraud. And now I had proof. I knew I had to keep myself steady if I wanted the truth to come out. Declan always twisted things, always acted calm while everyone else fell apart. So I trained myself to breathe slowly, speak clearly, and stay calm while I collected every piece of evidence. I didn't want him to see me as the scared girl he used to control. I wanted him to face the version of me he never expected. Silas helped more than I ever thought he would. He took my search seriously and treated me like someone who deserved answers. Together, we tracked down Jonas Kitteridge, the retired clerk who once handled Declan's custody paperwork. Jonas looked tired, like someone holding on to secrets for too long. When Silas mentioned Declan's name, Jonas's whole expression changed. He finally confessed that Declan had paid him to push the paperwork through quickly and hide anything Evelyn tried to file. Every letter she sent, every attempt she made to reach me, Jonas admitted he buried all of it for money. I asked him if he would repeat what he said on record, and he agreed. I recorded the confession legally, with his consent. Hearing it play back was strange. It felt like proof that my pain had been real all along. Lucinda helped me meet with an attorney who specialized in parental fraud. I expected the attorney to be unsure or hesitant, but after looking through what I had gathered, she told me I had a strong case. Not just for civil damages, but for possible criminal charges. Hearing that made something shift inside me. I felt stronger, but also angrier. My whole childhood had been twisted, controlled, and lied about, and all because Declan didn't want responsibility. Lucinda noticed the change in me and pulled me aside. She warned me not to let my anger lead the way. She told me revenge only works when it's smart, not emotional. I understood she was right. If I let my feelings take over, Declan would win again. So I forced myself to stay focused. I began preparing a full report. I wrote down every memory of neglect, every strange moment that now made sense, every lie, every missing letter, and every document we uncovered. I kept everything organized, clean, and ready for court. And once everything was in place, I felt a different kind of calm settle over me. I knew it was time to return to his house, not to make peace, not to get answers he would never give, but to confront him with everything I had. This time, he wouldn't decide what happened next. I would. I arrived at my father's house without warning, my heart pounding, but my mind steady. Marcy opened the door, her eyes wide in shock. I could tell she hadn't expected me, and her expression made me feel a small flicker of satisfaction. Behind her, Declan appeared, leaning casually against the wall like he owned the place. His smirk was the same one I had hated for years. "You're being dramatic again, Rowan," he said, dismissive, trying to make me feel small. But I wasn't here to argue. I had spent months gathering the truth, and now it was time to show it. Calmly, I told them I knew everything about Evelyn, about the forged documents, the clerk, and the guardianship sale. Their faces shifted. Declan's smirk faltered just a bit, and Marcy's composure wavered. Declan tried immediately to twist my words. "You've misunderstood," he said, his tone smooth, but I could hear the edge of panic hiding behind it. I stayed steady and reminded him that I had spoken to lawyers. Everything I knew was backed by evidence, and I wasn't bluffing. I could see the panic spreading in Marcy's eyes. This wasn't the frightened girl she had been able to push around for years. She knew I had proof now. Declan's confidence began to crack as he tried to deflect, shifting blame onto Marcy, saying she must have been the one behind it all. That's when Marcy's defenses broke. She started talking, almost too much, revealing truths she hadn't wanted anyone to know. Declan had stolen my childhood savings, she said. She explained how he manipulated every part of my life, from the letters he hid to the plans he made to keep me away from anything that mattered. It was shocking to hear, but it confirmed everything I had suspected. I stayed calm through it all, recording their conversation carefully. Every word, every admission was documented. I knew this moment was exactly what I needed. Not anger, not yelling, just proof that would finally make them face the consequences. When it was done, I didn't wait for apologies or excuses. I walked out of the house with my head held high. I had everything I needed now: evidence, witnesses, and the truth. I knew Declan and Marcy couldn't hide anymore. I wasn't going back to be a victim. This time, I was in control, and nothing they said or did could change that. For the first time in years, I felt steady. I was ready for the next step, and I knew exactly how I would make sure justice was served. I spent the next few weeks working closely with my attorney, preparing every detail of the case. We planned to file charges for fraud, abandonment, and the illegal transfer of my guardianship. It was overwhelming at times, but for the first time, I felt like I had control over my life. Every document I had collected, every recording, and every statement was organized to make sure nothing could be dismissed. The police questioned Jonas, the retired clerk who had helped Declan, and he confirmed everything I had discovered. Hearing him tell the truth out loud felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. Finally, there was proof that Declan had been manipulating the system for years, and no one could deny it. Soon after, Declan received notice of the investigation. He tried calling and texting me, demanding explanations, but I refused to engage. Everything went through my lawyer. I had learned the hard way that dealing with him directly only gave him power over me, and I wasn't giving him that anymore. News of the investigation started spreading. Declan's workplace got wind of it, and his professional reputation began to crumble. Colleagues who had once respected him started looking at him with doubt. It was strange to see the man who had seemed untouchable for so long begin to falter. Marcy reached out to me in secret, leaving messages to apologize for what had happened. I read them but didn't respond. I didn't need her forgiveness, and I wasn't ready to trust her words. My focus was on justice and reclaiming what had been stolen from me. Through my attorney, I released a victim statement to the public. I told my story calmly and clearly, without anger or exaggeration. I wanted people to understand what had happened, and I wanted Declan's actions to be seen for what they really were. At the same time, I made sure Evelyn's inheritance was secured legally. Everything she had left behind was now mine, protected and out of Declan's reach. It felt like a small victory, a way to honor my mother and reclaim a part of my life that had been stolen from me. With the case moving forward, I began thinking about my own future. I started planning steps to rebuild my life, to create a home and stability that I had never had before. It was exciting to imagine a life where I was in control, free from the manipulation and betrayal of my past. Meanwhile, Declan was spiraling. The consequences he had always believed he would escape were finally catching up to him. Watching him lose the power he had once wielded so confidently was satisfying, though I kept my focus on myself and my future. I had survived, and now I was ready to thrive. After everything I had been through, starting college felt like a fresh beginning. Evelyn's inheritance made it possible, and I threw myself into my studies, determined to make the most of the chance I had been denied for so long. For the first time, I could focus on myself without fear or distraction. Lucinda helped me build a home that felt safe and warm, something I had never really known. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, and every corner of it reminded me that I belonged somewhere. She gave me guidance and support, helping me adjust to a life where I could actually relax and plan for the future. I slowly began forming new friendships too. At first, it was hard to trust people after all the lies and betrayal I had faced. But over time, I learned that some people could be counted on, and I started to enjoy the simple comfort of friends who genuinely cared about me. Meanwhile, Declan's actions were catching up to him. He was formally charged with document fraud and custodial interference, and knowing that the law was finally holding him accountable gave me a quiet sense of relief. I had always known the truth, but seeing it recognized legally made the world feel fairer, at least a little. My attorney asked if I wanted to pursue further damages, and I agreed. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming what had been stolen from me and proving that I deserved justice. Every step I took was a step toward rebuilding my life on my own terms. For the first time, I visited Evelyn's grave. Standing there, I spoke aloud everything I had wished I could say to her. How much I missed her, how sorry I was that she suffered because of Declan, and how I had been left alone to face so much pain. It was a release, a way to connect with her even after she was gone. I promised her that I would reclaim everything that had been taken from me, not out of anger, but out of respect for the life she had wanted me to have. That promise became my anchor, reminding me to stay focused on what really mattered. Silas was there too, quietly supporting me. He never pressured me or intruded. He just offered his presence and a listening ear whenever I needed it. His support made it easier to trust people again, even in small ways. As I settled into this new life, I felt myself healing. The anger and pain hadn't disappeared, but they no longer controlled me. I could feel strength growing inside me, a sense of peace that came from knowing I was taking back control of my story. Even as I moved forward, I remained committed to justice. I knew that my journey wasn't just about me. It was about standing up for the truth and making sure that no one else would suffer the way I had. And for the first time in my life, I felt ready to truly live. The day of the court hearings finally arrived, and I felt a mix of nerves and determination. When Declan walked in, he looked nothing like the confident man I remembered. His suit was wrinkled, his hair messy, and there was a tension in his shoulders I had never seen before. He seemed defeated, and for the first time, I realized just how vulnerable he really was. When it was my turn to speak, I took a deep breath and told the court everything. I explained the years of emotional neglect, the constant feeling of being unwanted, and the ways I had been abandoned by the people who were supposed to care for me. I spoke clearly, without letting anger or tears control me, and I could feel a quiet strength growing inside me with every word. Next, Jonas testified. He told the court how Declan had bribed him to alter paperwork, hide my mother's attempts to contact me, and speed up the guardianship process for his own gain. Hearing him confirm the truth in front of everyone felt like another layer of the walls around me breaking down. Marcy was called to speak. At first, she hesitated, avoiding eye contact and speaking softly. But eventually, she admitted that Declan had orchestrated everything, that he had controlled and manipulated every step to make sure I was pushed out of their lives. Her words were small relief, but they were important. The truth was finally coming out. My attorney then presented the forged documents I had found, the proof of everything Declan had done to hide the truth, manipulate the system, and take control of my life. The courtroom grew quiet as the evidence was examined, and I could see the impact it had on everyone there, including Declan, whose confidence continued to crumble. As his lies unraveled publicly, I stayed calm and steady. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. I realized that the fear I had carried for years didn't belong to me. It had been his tool, and now I was free of it. Finally, the judge made the ruling. Everything went in my favor. Damages were awarded and criminal charges were confirmed. Declan was taken into custody right there, his authority gone, his plans undone. I walked out of the courtroom feeling a sense of power I had never known before. Not because I had won, but because I had finally spoken the truth and been heard. For the first time, I felt like myself, strong, steady, and free. The weight of the lies, the betrayal, and the fear was gone, and I could finally begin to move forward with my life, knowing that justice had been served. Months after everything that had happened, my life had finally started to feel calm. Living with Lucinda, I had a home that felt safe and full of warmth, a place where I could breathe and think without fear. The chaos of my past still lingered in my mind, but it no longer controlled me. I was learning to enjoy small moments of peace and normalcy. I decided to honor my mother by establishing a scholarship fund in her name. It felt like the right way to keep her memory alive and to help other kids who might be struggling with things I had gone through. Giving back in this way made me feel connected to her and gave me purpose beyond myself. Therapy remained an important part of my life. I continued unpacking all the hurt and confusion from my past, slowly understanding how deeply the emotional abuse had affected me. Each session helped me heal a little more, giving me the strength to face the world with confidence rather than fear. I thought carefully about my last name. I could have changed it, tried to erase the part of me tied to Declan, but instead I decided to redefine it. My name wasn't a symbol of what had been done to me. It was a symbol of who I was now, strong, independent, and in control of my own life. Silas and I grew closer over time, but on my terms. I wasn't ready to rush anything, and he respected that. His support felt steady, calm, and patient, giving me space to grow while still being there when I needed him. It was a friendship, and maybe something more someday, built on trust rather than convenience. Letters from Declan arrived occasionally. He wrote from jail, pleading, explaining, begging, or blaming. I never opened them. They held no power over me anymore. I realized that victory wasn't in revenge or seeing him punished. It was in reclaiming my identity and my life. That was the true triumph. I visited Evelyn's grave again, but this time it felt different. I didn't feel anger or sadness as sharply. I spoke to her quietly, telling her about the life I was building, the choices I was making, and the strength I had found. It felt peaceful, like I was finally honoring her memory in a way she would be proud of. I thanked Lucinda quietly for saving me when my own family had failed. She had given me guidance, care, and love when it seemed like no one else would. As I walked away from the grave, I felt lighter than I had in years. I knew I would never be abandoned again. I had built my own life, my own identity, and my own future. For the first time, I felt truly free, and nothing from my past could take that away.